So, good afternoon. Now maybe I need to move this a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That's the adjustments for being short. Good afternoon, everybody. I see some people are standing. There's some more chairs in the front. You can move a little bit closer and find some seats. Just as an announcement as well, if people need restrooms, they're right over there to my left. So, I'm Sara Hernandez, Associate Professor of Sociology here at New College. I wish to welcome you all to New College of Florida and to the Nan Freeman Memorial dedication ceremony. Many of you come from far away. Some of you came by land, others flew, and I know for some of you there were already challenges on your way here. But I hope that for most of you, you have had a smooth travel. I am most appreciative of your efforts to be here today, as they reflect the importance of today's event. In my mind, today we acknowledge the tragic event 50 years ago, where Nan lost her life, and our loss was her presence among us. At the same time, we are here to honor the strength of Nan's spirit, the tireless commitment to social justice. We begin our event with the words from Elizabeth Freeman, Nan's sister, and she will be followed by Pam Albright, Nan's close friend and a New College student who was present during the protest in support of the sugarcane workers in 1972. So, please.
Well, we are gathered today to remember my younger sister Nan with the beautiful mural outside that was designed and painted by Danielle Diver. This would not have been possible without the support of the New College administration, current staff, several alumni, several other people on our committee that have been working on this for 4 years. We learned to Zoom before COVID. We were doing it before, and now we all know how to do it. I thank you a lot for remembering my sister Nan. I lost a sister, but I did gain a lot of new family members. Nan left us way too soon, but doing what she thought was important, social justice. Since Nan was born premature, she was a fighter. She was a fighter for herself and for others. In 5th grade, her Native American report was not a typical 2 pages. It was 2 shopping bags full of information she had researched. In high school, she was an honor student. She won an AFL-CIO JF Kennedy Award, and in the 1960s, $1,000 went a long way. When they asked her what did she write in the essay, she said she wrote a couple of pages of garbage, and she drew a picture of the flag at the bottom. But my mother told me that she actually had read almost every book in the library about the labor movement. Nan was a religious girl. She was an introvert at times, quiet, an avid reader, deeply sensitive, and always with a smile. Her hobbies were varied. She took art lessons, guitar lessons, drama, and of course she loved reading. We would not speak to her on Sunday mornings. It was until after the Bullwinkle and Rocky show. And she did not ask for her allowance until the newest Beatle album was in the stores. I still have those, and I do have her collection of Beatle trading cards. You know, like the baseball cards? Well, I got the Beatle ones. Our parakeet was named Paul. When she got upset, she would put on my mother's old felt hat, and you didn't speak with her. She might have been upset about something on TV, world news, friend's problem, something at school, most anything. After winning the Wakefield High History Award and the French medals, she apologized to her friends for getting good grades. During a 5-week European study tour sponsored by Clark University, Nan Cindy Freeman departed with the group, but she came back morning glory, as she welcomed each day with joy. One of her many poems and scribblings included some of her happy things. She was not always super serious, blowing bubbles, grilled cheese subs, finding a mountain and meeting sunset at the top, listening to records in the dark with a person you love, talking or playing with a little kid or reading one of your favorite little kid books, sharing a dream, a thought, or a smile, becoming part of a poster, looking at the world through a kaleidoscope, sitting on the common, throwing a party for anyone who walked by, hot fudge sundaes. She chose New College so she could be at a school that supported independent thinking and independent doing. She only graduated second in her high school class because her health did not allow her to take gym. But at Florida, she was bicycling to the migrant camp to tutor kids and to help in research for the United Farm Workers. During the Thanksgiving break, she went to a halfway house in North Carolina, spent time talking to the young men who were incarcerated there. And then she produced a 200-page report on the prison system, which I believe is in the case near the front of the library. Nan was a freshman at New College. She volunteering at a migrant camp at Wakefield High honor graduate, class of 71, and we all wanted to see what she would become as an adult. Instead, she was Cesar Chavez's first martyr of his cause for fairness in the fields for those that feed us. What would have Nan done in her adult years? Something political, environmental, educational, working for voter rights, true equal rights, women's issues. We'll never know. Nan's passing was a terrible accident that affected many besides my family. Jodi Picoult's latest book, Wish You Were Here, is about surviving COVID, but I think parts of it applies to us today. Picoult wrote about how the Japanese believe that it takes 3 generations to forget. Those who experience a trauma pass it on to their children and their grandchildren, and then the memory fades. To the survivors of the tragedy, that's unthinkable. What's the point of living through something terrible if you cannot convey the lessons you have learned? Since nothing will ever replace all you've lost, the only way to make meaning is to make sure no one else goes through what you did. Memories are the safeguards we use to keep from making the same mistakes. This mural, I hope, will keep Nan's memory alive and inspire others to take on challenges in their lives. We know that my family and Judaism teaches about giving back to others. Nan, my brother Nelson, and I grew up in Wakefield, a small town north of Boston. Our parents and grandparents volunteered in several important causes. As kids, we also were helpers, sometimes collating newspapers on our kitchen floor. Anyone can serve. Find an issue that you believe and join in. Be active. Write a letter. Participate in a demonstration. Collect signatures. So many ways to serve. Not only will you help support your cause, but you will learn new skills and make lifelong friends. You will make a difference. Be an activist. Your house might be a little messier, but that's okay. In Nan's memory, support a cause that you choose. Anyone can serve, so please do. Celebrate, act, and thank you for coming.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank each of you so very much for coming here to be with us today to honor my friend. It means so much to me and to all of us who knew her and loved her. Here at New College, we all knew her as Morning Glory, as Liz explained. She and I felt drawn to each other from the moment that we met as first-year students here in 1971. We were both interested in social justice issues and discovered that we had signed up for most of the same classes that first semester of college. We did almost everything together. In a letter Morning Glory wrote to her parents 5 days before her death, she described us as being like the Bobbsey twins. This was particularly meaningful to me because I actually do have a twin sister. My sister and I had headed off to different colleges that fall, so we were apart for the first time. Morning Glory did feel like a sister to me. The two of us had signed up for a course called Project Real, taught by Dr. Marshall Berry. The course emphasized learning economic principles by working with community groups fighting poverty. Project Real became the informal research wing of the United Farmworkers Union, which was trying to gain a foothold here in Florida. Morning Glory was very aware of the brutal and inhumane working and living conditions that farm workers in Florida were subjected to. She was dedicated to supporting the empowerment of the workers to gain better lives for themselves. As Dr. Berry taught us, real change happens when those most affected by an injustice develop the strength to stand up and demand their rights, not when those in power decide what they need. The work that Morning Glory and other Project Real students did contributed to the successful organizing of citrus workers and a contract between Coca-Cola/Minute Maid and the UFW. This contract was life-altering for the farm workers who benefited from improved working conditions and wages as well as retirement benefits. I don't have to tell this group about that too much because I'm excited to say that some of those retired farm workers are actually here with us today. Thank you for coming. I am borrowing from two books as well as my own personal experience as I explain about the circumstances surrounding Morning Glory's death. One book called Big Sugar was written by Alec Wilkinson, who is attending this event online today. In his excellent, extremely informative book, he wrote a very moving chapter about Morning Glory's death. The second book is by Dr. Marshall Berry, which is also a very excellent and insightful book. In January of 1972, students in Project Real learned about a strike of truck drivers, primarily Cuban men, against Talisman Sugar Corporation in Belgrade, Florida. Their demands were simple. All they were asking for was a short break in their 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts. So every day they worked 12-hour shifts. And they only wanted a little bit of time to eat a meal and to go to the bathroom. They had to eat while they drove, and they had to use a bottle for a bathroom break. They weren't even asking for higher wages or other improvements in their working conditions. But the company immediately fired them and forced them off the property. Then they hired strikebreakers to drive the trucks across the picket line, giving them little or no training on how to operate the dangerous vehicles. Most of those strike-breaking drivers had no real experience in the past on how to drive that kind of truck. Morning Glory and I and a few other Project Real students decided to go down to Belgrade and join the picket line in support of the strikers, who at that point were being supported by the United Farm Workers. One of the students whom we rode down with, Becky Hurst Acuda, wrote a very moving account of the tragic events surrounding Morning Glory's death. She described it in her paper, Morning Glory and me giggling in the backseat of the car on the way to the strike, appearing younger than our stated ages, she said. Reading that reminded me of how young we actually were. We were just 18 years old, far away from our homes and families, having started our first year of college just a few months earlier. We were just beginning to test our wings, and we were having fun doing it. Although we were young and inexperienced in navigating the world on our own, naive in some ways, the danger of the situation we were about to encounter did not escape us. Dr. Marshall Berry, who unfortunately is unable to join us today due to health reasons, but he's with us online, said in a speech that he gave on the 25th anniversary of Morning Glory's death, Nan knew of these dangers that existed in Central Florida. She was a brave young woman. She was at Talisman Sugar because she believed in her dream of social justice and chose to act on it. I remember that night outside of the Talisman Sugar Mill, Morning Glory, hanging out with the strikers and chatting with them since she had a pretty good grasp of Spanish. She was eager to learn more about their lives. I can picture her smiling and at ease and wearing a wide hat, much like Danielle so beautifully depicts in her mural. Then Morning Glory took a nap and I leafleted at the entrance. Around 3 a.m., Morning Glory had woken up and she came out to where I was to relieve me. I handed her the flyers and she prepared to pass them out to the drivers. Not only was it very dark that night, but also extremely foggy, making visibility very difficult. My memory is not very clear from this point on. Basically, one truck stopped and accepted a flyer for Morning Glory, and then another truck came up quickly behind it. One of those trucks apparently turned too sharply onto the road to the mill and struck Morning Glory. I ran over and knelt next to her, but she was unconscious. One of the strikers ran to get help from two deputies from the sheriff's department who were parked nearby. One of the deputies said to me, "You kids had no business being here." While we were waiting for the ambulance to arrive, which took forever, Morning Glory let out a deep breath and one of the deputies said, "She's gone home." I don't remember them attempting any first aid. I rode in the ambulance with her and tried to comfort her, holding out hope that she was still alive. After an agonizing wait for hours in the ER, we were told that she had passed away. Florida Highway Patrol made no serious effort to investigate exactly how Nan died. With evidence to the contrary, the investigators' conclusion was that she had been killed somewhere else and that the strikers had dragged her body to the gates of the mill. The newspapers reported that a co-ed from the ultra-liberal New College had died, but it was unclear how. Maybe drugs or alcohol was involved, Mr. Pauley, who was the owner of Talisman Sugar, suggested. An autopsy, which was performed without her family's permission and against their faith, showed no drugs or alcohol in her system. The overt hostility, actually pure hatred, that the authorities directed toward the farm workers and also us students for supporting them was very clearly expressed in how they treated us and made this horrendous tragedy even more traumatizing for all of us. To this day, the cover-up of the case by the Florida Highway Patrol continues. Calling it a, quote, cold case, they continue to refuse to release records of Nan Freeman's death. Agribusiness is still a force to be reckoned with here in the state of Florida. These huge corporations continue to demonstrate overt racism and total lack of concern toward the farm workers who do the tough, back-breaking work that enables their bosses to amass greater and greater wealth. And the local government entities continue to do their bidding at the expense of the well-being of farm workers as well as others from poor communities and communities of color in the state. Dr. Marshall Berry so eloquently wrote in his book, quote, "Nan was at Talisman Sugar because she believed in her dreams of social justice, not the superfluous platitudes about social problems which we hear most frequently in election years and in the State of the Union addresses. Nan acted to try to bring about the justice that we still need so much. She bravely chose to act on her dream, not just sit around and talk the talk." Morning Glory inspired others on campus by her dreams, her work, and her sacrifice. 10 students went to work full-time with the UFW in organizing centers across the state of Florida. Several students left the state shortly after Morning Glory's death to work full-time for the United Farm Workers consumer boycott of iceberg lettuce that was going on at the time. I was one of those students. After my friend's death, I could not bear to be at New College without her. I spent the next 2 years in Boston working on the lettuce boycott. Other students went to Chicago and other parts of the country doing the same. I never returned to New College as a student. I have no doubt that if Nan Freeman had lived, she would have continued to dedicate her life to social and political activism because that's where her heart was. and because she was so acutely aware of the many injustices in our society that continue to this day. I believe that the best way to honor Morning Glory is to take up her fight. Let's all get to work.
Thank you for sharing these very personal experiences. We now are going to hear from the president of New College, Dr. Paroker, who will be followed by Lindsay McElroy, a New College alumna from the class of 2016.
Thank you, Dr. Hernandez. I've only been here at New College for 9 months. I did not know Nan, so I only have very short remarks. But I do want to say two things. One is, I am so honored by your presence here. It means so much to us as a college. It says a lot about who we are as a college to have this. And so I'm so grateful that you are here. I'm also so grateful to everyone who, particularly Danielle and the beautiful mural, for the work that you are doing to keep her memory alive. We talk a lot about New College students being big, having big, bold ideas and actions, and wanting to make the world a better place. And usually when we talk about that, we think about the ways of what they're going to do in their lives in decades and decades. And the reality is, in Nan's case, and again, I didn't know her, I just recently learned about her, but I would argue she did do big, bold things, having all of us here, inspiring people. So my contribution is that I am somebody who just learned about Nan, and what a wonderful thing that is. She inspires me, her story inspires me, and thank you so much for being a part of this ceremony today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay McElroy. I graduated in the class of 2020 from the cohort of 2016. I'm here today to share my experience working with the migrant farm workers since graduating and before my graduation as well. I initially wanted to go to New College because not only are students here eager to learn, and I knew I would be surrounded by other students who were eager to learn as Nan was, but I also knew that this was a school where the students and professors encouraged you to find creative solutions to fix the problems in the world. It's not just about theory or lectures at this school, it's really about what you can do in the real world and how you can actively try to solve problems, even as an 18-year-old. And the beautiful thing about New College and where I work now, the Guatemalan Maya Center, is that we both share these untraditional paths to achieving what we want. You know, at New College, we might not have grades, and we have our independent study projects, and it really allows people to learn what they need to learn in order to succeed. At my job, we focus specifically in the cultural competency of the indigenous Mayan population. We serve about 60% Mayan people, but anyone who comes to us is welcome at our doors. And the Mayan population, I'm sure some of you know, maybe some of you are Mayan origin. There's over 24 languages in Guatemala. So the people coming to the country not only don't speak English, they don't speak Spanish as well. So we ensure that there are people there to listen to them and amplify their voices. And when I say our untraditional methods, a lot of nonprofits are restricted in what they can do towards advocacy. But our founder, Father Frank, ensures that we always get into a little bit of good trouble. It's very important to us. Just his friend was here the other day, and she was saying how about in the 80s, the FBI, her neighbor found the FBI going through her trash can because of all her activism with the peace movement and the UFW. So we continue this advocacy today. I actually want to share one more story of Father Frank in the 80s. Guillermo, the chairman of our board, Guillermo Carrasco, he's here today as well. And he also runs our food pantry as a full-time volunteer. He and Father Frank used to do these mock ICE raids with the people to ensure that they knew what to do if their rights were infringed upon. So they trained all the people in the community that if you had papers, you ran away, because then the undocumented people could sneak off while the ICE agents were chasing the people with papers. And Guillermo would come in and act like an ICE agent. Everyone knew who he was in the middle of Father Frank's Mass and interrupt it to perform these. So, you know, what they do is really impactful. And at the center, we continue these methods today. We had a lot of advocacy around the COVID-19 pandemic. There was no testing for our people initially because we work with primarily migrant laborers who work Monday through Saturday. So they had no means to go get tested. So we started our own test Saturday night. We were getting up to 600 people in the night, staying well past midnight. And it showed that there was a great need in the community, but nobody else was providing for it. The same happened with the vaccines. The vaccines weren't available to our community members because the governor mandated a state ID or 2 proofs of residency. For our crowd, which is a primarily undocumented community, the 2 proofs of residency were nearly impossible for our people to get. So we met with Congress people, and the governor still didn't listen, so we held a public prayer right in front of the health department. And similar to some tactics Father Frank learned in the 80s, he had us interrupt his speech with funeral bells, and we started naming off those essential workers who passed from COVID in our community. And as we did this, we had 6 men from our community carry a woman through the crowd in the sense of a funeral. Her hair was flowing, she was wearing her traditional Mayan corte, and as we were naming the names of the dead. And it was extremely impactful. A lot of people were crying and were very moved. And that night, the director of our health department in Palm Beach County called us and said she'd give us special dispensation to have an event with no community IDs. So we were able to vaccinate 600 people after that date at our first event, and we've continued to vaccinate people at the center. So other than our advocacy, we've done a lot of other things. I'm sure, I know a few people here today were in a lawsuit with us against the governor regarding SB 168 as well, which we fought with Southern Poverty Law Center, and we just continue to do this work every single day. It's really important to us, and Father Frank always reminds us that we're not there to tell the people what they need. It's not our responsibility. One of our programs, for instance, is an early literacy program teaching 3-year-olds, and the requirement for that program is traditionally that the early learning specialists need to have a bachelor's degree. They don't require that for our program because they realize the cultural competence of our mothers, our women, far outweighs any degree. So we hire Mayan women who speak the native languages, and we try to pair them up with mothers from the same village as them. So it's not an outsider teaching you how to raise your child, it's a mother or grandmother from your area teaching you the different ways that you can instate early literacy in your children. And we have an extremely successful program because of that. So for us, it is very important to listen to the people and amplify their voices and not talk over them. And I believe that's what's really beautiful about Nan Freeman in all the stories that are shared with us, is that, and even in the mural, she's sitting with the farm workers. She is with the people, and she is one of them. She's not telling them what they need. She's listening to them and using her time to amplify their voices. And I think it's a lesson that's important to all of us, and I aspire to do every day, is I'm not here to tell our people what they need. I'm only here to listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to introduce Jane Rose Fallon, a singer-songwriter who has composed a special song for today's event.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here. Nan asked me a few years ago to do one of these. I just moved down to Florida. It was lovely to come and do it. Then she said, we're going to do this special event. Would you come and sing it? And I said, I'm very honored. Just can I write a song? And Nan, being a songwriter. And I did the research, and the more I read, the more honored I got. I read about what happened and her connections and the people who spoke of her. And in the song, I connected with the Morning Glory nickname and the symbolism of the Morning Glory, which so suited Nan. And I took a quote from her sister Liz. A little bit more?
Yeah.
Up here, can we get a little more sound on the vocal? Possible? Get me a little closer, perhaps. It's hard when you're singing with a guitar to get close. Is that better? Yeah? Okay, cool. So I stole a quote from Liz to start the whole thing off, and I stole some things from Cesar Chavez, and he called her Kadosh, which means holy, right? And that's in the song. So I hope you like the song, which I really enjoyed writing. I walked into my garden to pick a little row of beans, and I thought of those who feed us every day. They toil in the fields, back breaking in the sun, out of sight and out of mind to most everyone. And I remember the way that you always cared, how you worked for justice in your special way. And as I think of you, I wipe back a tear, hope you'll always be remembered, wishing you were here. Morning glory bursting in sun brings energy and healing to the heart of everyone. Morning glory glistening in the dew, what brings the world such beauty sadly ends too soon. Love your neighbor as yourself seemed obvious to you, while others were complacent. You believed that human dignity was everybody's right, up to the moment of your own sacrifice. Oh, holy are the ones who say you matter. Holy are the ones who say I care. When the world turns a deaf ear to the whispers of the poor and a blind eye to injustice everywhere, I think of you. A morning glory symbolizes human life, they say. The challenges we all face every day. In the shortness of the light, it teaches us to thrive with the spirit of love that keeps us all alive. 50 years ago, so long and yet so short, you'd think the cause would have been won by now. We will follow your example, the legacy of you, and all that you stood for. It's the least that we can do. Morning glory bursting in sun brings energy and healing to the heart of everyone. Morning glory bursting in the dew, what brings the world such beauty sadly fades too soon. Ooh. It's always wonderful when you write a song for a cause or a reason and decide that's going to be in my repertoire forever. I will be singing that song out, and I get great response from people who don't even know her story. they connect with that, and I hope that I said what was needed for right now. So we're going to do a song together. Liz mentioned her affinity for the Beatles, and we did this, I think, at the last one I think we did. And so you're welcome to sing along. It's Imagine, which seems to suit Nan and her beliefs and all of our hopes for the future. Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us, above us on the sky. Imagine all the people living for today. Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us, and the world will live as one. Imagine there's no heaven. Imagine there's no hunger. Imagine all the people living life in peace.
With such moving, wonderful inspiration from these songs, I now move to acknowledge the presence of some individuals in this group. I want to begin by acknowledging past staff members of the United Farm Workers Union, Pam Albright, David R. Smith, Maria Barajas, who also was the Kennedy Farm Worker Medical Plan Administrator, Father Frank O'Loughlin, Ramon Rodriguez, and Kenny Snodgrass. There are a few There are UFW members elected to serve on the ranch committee here as well. Major Anderson, Hilario Barajas, Johnny Crawford, and Tirso Moreno. From the Guatemala Maya Center, Guillermo Carrasco. From the Alianza Nacional de Campesinas, Elvira Carajal and Blanca Flores. From the American Postal Workers Union, Sylvester Harrison. And we're not sure whether Eric Bracken is here. Probably not. Okay. He is with the Felons Rights Restoration Coalition. So I want to thank all of you for being here and welcoming you to New College. Next, I would like to introduce Hilario Barajas. From 1971 through 1982, Hilario Barajas was a member of the United Farm Workers, serving as a crew steward, branch committee president, and as a UFW full-time organizer. He's now active with the Young American Dreamers, which was started by his daughter, Maria Isabel, and son, Daniel. Today, Executive Director Daniel Barajas of the Young American Dreamers and other members are here to dedicate the memorial. So I will give the word to Mr. Barajas, Hilario Barajas.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. In November 1971, I was 21 years old. I was working on the groves with my brother Valentin Barajas and my wife Maria for this company, Minnie May, which was part of the Coca-Cola Company food division. When for the first time, representatives of the Cesar Chavez Union came and explained the union benefits and asked us to, if we want to sign these petitions cards. If we sign it, we could be represented by the union, and we could negotiate a contract with benefits, with great benefits. We could negotiate our own wages as minimum wage for bags. We'll have a grievance committee, pay holidays, pay sick days, pay duty, and a medical plan insurance. Pay doctor visits, pay x-rays, dental benefits, maternity, prescription medicines, ambulance service, emergency room, and a pension plan. All these promises seem like a dream, but the day came when we were able to enjoy these benefits because we signed the contract. With a medical plan. Kennedy medical plan, and now I'm checking if I got it on the right side because it's in English and Spanish. So, okay. All of these benefits for more than 20 years, thousands of farm workers have enjoyed these benefits of this contract. We have learned that the farm workers have voice and power in the fields and in the political. The union also had a campaign to register to vote. I was 21 and I did not vote. I did not know what was to vote. Just like the majority of the people, of the farm workers, we thought that we could not vote. Many of us never voted before. And a great political victory for the union and the farm workers was made in the unemployment benefits. The unemployment laws say that in all of the industries, workers were entitled to unemployment benefits, except farm workers. That was what the law said. The union was instrumental on changing that law. Now, thanks to the union, hundreds of thousands of farm workers are able to receive the unemployment checks. Today, I would like to thank the supporters, all the supporters, who dedicate your time to this causa. Some have dedicated a little time, some dedicate a lot, others dedicate the whole life, like Kenny. Where's Kenny? Others have sacrificed their lives. Nan Freeman, Nancy Dacula, René López, Juan de la Cruz, Rufino Contreras. And today, 50 years after that tragic day, we would like to remember Nan Freeman and say thank you for the change that you made. Viva Nan Freeman! Viva! Long live Nan Freeman!
Long live.
Viva Nan Freeman!
Viva Nan Freeman.
Ahora es un gran honor para mí presentar a ustedes la sucesora de Cesar Chavez, la única tercer presidente de la Unión de Campesinos en los 60 años de historia. Ella tiene años de experiencia encabezando el manejo financiero, administración personal, recaudando fondos, medios de comunicación, más organizar negociaciones de contratos, administrando los contratos de la Unión, legislación, asuntos legales, iniciativas internacionales de la Unión de Trabajadores Campesinos. Ella es una inmigrante de México que está igualmente orgullosa de su ciudadanía americana como de su herencia mexicana y zapoteca. Ella es la primera inmigrante latina que dirige una unión nacional en los Estados Unidos. Now, it's a great honor for me to introduce the successor of Cesar Chavez and the only third president of the United Farm Workers in the history of the 60 years. She has years of experience heading up financial management, administration, staff, fundraising, social media, plus organizing contracts, negotiating contracts, administrating contracts, legislation, and legal affairs and international initiatives of the UFW. She is an immigrant from Mexico who is equally proud of her U.S. citizenship and her Mexican and Zapotecan heritage. She is the first Latina emigrante to lead a national union in the United States. Please help me to welcome the President of the UFW, Teresa Romero.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for being here on this important day. First of all, we want to thank New College of Florida for all its cooperation and support. We are also grateful to the Nan Freeman Memorial Planning Committee that we participated in over the last few years for creating this beautiful memorial. I want to also thank Danielle Diggert, for her moving work. It was about 9 a.m. in California on Tuesday, January 25th, 1972, when Cesar Chavez first learned about the death of Nan Freeman. He was stunned. No one had ever been killed as a result of union activism during a United Farm Workers strike. Yet Nan was the first of 5 UFW martyrs. After Nan, a young Jewish woman from Massachusetts, 4 men, a Muslim, and 3 Catholics, were killed during the strike. Naji Naifala, Juan de la Cruz, Rufino Contreras, and René Lopez. Little was known at first about Nan's passing. When details arrived about her young age, only 18, what brought her to the picket line and what she was doing there, Cesar was deeply saddened. He had daughters about the same age. Later that year, Cesar came to pay respects to the Freemans, Nan's parents Milton and Selma, at their home in Wakefield, Massachusetts. Also there were Pam Albright, Nan's friend and fellow New College student, as well as Andrea and Marcos Munoz, who led the Boston boycott. Every year, on the anniversary of Nan's passing, Cesar organized memorial services in La Paz, our headquarters at the Tehachapi Mountains, town of Keene, near Bakersfield. On the 15th anniversary of Nan's death, the Freemans planted a tree for their daughter in a park at the 40 acres, our historical property near Delano. Liz remembers how the family would receive a nice note from Cesar each year. She last saw him when he spoke at Harvard shortly before his passing. They chatted afterwards. All we talked about was education, Liz recalls. He was so excited about teaching a class at college in California. Getting ready for the students was more important to him than all the famous people that he met. Now, on the Sunday of every UFW convention, hundreds of farm worker delegates and guests gather for memorial services honoring Nan and the other 4 martyrs. Nan's sister Liz and Nan's friend Pam had been with us on those occasions. In 2013, we joined members of the Freeman family and the U.S. Secretary of Labor, Hilda Solis, for a ceremony at the Department of Labor's headquarters in Washington, D.C. There, Secretary Solis inducted Nan Freeman and the other 4 martyrs into the department's prestigious Labor Hall of Honor. Nan's father, Milton Freeman, elderly and in a wheelchair, witnessed the honors for his daughter. He passed away in 2016. Cesar once said, "We don't know how God chooses martyrs. We do know they give us the most precious gift they possess, their very lives. Because martyrs made the ultimate sacrifice In Cesar's words, they're very special human beings, special to their families and friends, but perhaps even more so to the people who they laid down their lives. Countless women and men in the farm worker movement over the decades worked longer and harder than they ever thought possible, and made great sacrifices. But as Cesar observed, no matter how much we work or accomplish or sacrifice, we can never equal the contributions that people like Nan Freeman made to la causa, the cause. That is why we must remember the sacrifices Nan and the other martyrs made for us. This is why dedication of this moving memorial to Nan on the campus where she was active and from where she traveled to that fateful picket line in Belle Glade is so important and so fitting. When Cesar learned about Nan's death, he described her not as a young girl who suffered a tragic accident, but as a sister who died while fulfilling the commandments by showing her love for her neighbor and for the cause of justice. There is a passage from the book of Isaiah. It is a part of the books of the prophets, where we find the social justice teachings and commandments that are the heart of the Judeo-Christian tradition. The prophets envisioned a society based on justice, where those in power did not exploit the vulnerable, but rather protected them from oppression. This passage describes how Isaiah begins his work. In it, Isaiah records, "Then I heard the voice of the Lord, saying, 'Whom shall I send? Who will go for us?' And Isaiah said, 'Here am I, send me.'" Here, God is asking for volunteers to spread his message. Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And Isaiah answers his call. Here am I, send me. 5 decades ago, striking sugar workers also sent out a call asking for volunteers who would come to stand with them in their struggle against abuse and oppression. Who will be sent? They asked. Who will be there for us? Nan Freeman was only 18 years old. She had her whole life in front of her. She could have done and become anything, as her sister Liz recalls. But Nan stepped forward. She answered the workers' call. She picketed with them in the middle of that night on a lonely stretch of U.S. Highway 27, 20 miles south of Belle Glade. "Here am I," she said, "send me." She did indeed fulfill the commandments as Cesar affirmed. May Nan's memory continue to be a blessing. May she not be forgotten. Thank you, and viva la causa, and viva Nan Freeman.
Thank you. I'm just informed that there's a statement from Dolores Huerta, so I'll have to read it. Nan Freedman's spirit continues to guide United Farm Workers in their work to protect and gain the benefits of society that the farm workers deserve. A sacrifice will never be forgotten. I'm sorry I could not be there with you today, but I do want to send regards to her family for their gracious acceptance and understanding of what Nan's life meant to uplift and strengthen the farm worker movement. She will live forever in the heart of every farm worker who lives and she will live forever in the heart of every farm worker whose lives have bettered from her life. Que viva, Nan Freeman. Our next speaker is Sam Trickey, who is Professor Emeritus at the University of Florida and board member and past president of the National Farm Workers Ministry. Dr. Trickey will offer closing remarks before we move to prayer, song, and then some final acknowledgments from my part.
It is remarkable how the work of the divine fits things together. I did not expect what Teresa said, and I did not expect what Dolores said. And when you hear my prepared remarks, you will see how things fit together in ways that I did not anticipate. So it's a privilege and honor to be here to represent Farm Worker Ministry and to have represented the ministry on the Memorial Committee. I bring greetings to Nan's family, Liz family, from Julie Taylor, our Executive Director. She could not be here today. And also from our board. Some members of our board are on the other side of Florida with the Coalition of Immokalee Workers in their kickoff of their April campaign today. Farm Worker Ministry's purpose is advocacy, accompaniment of farm workers in their long, arduous campaigns for economic and social justice and dignity. Today, most communities of faith exist in places in the U.S. that are far from the fields, the vineyards, the groves where farm workers labor. That remoteness is a nearly perfect cloak of invisibility. It hides economic exploitation, racial discrimination, sexual abuse, child labor, and a whole litany of abuses that we all know all too well. Almost every faith tradition has urgent calls for establishing justice and dignity for those of us dismissed as, and you have to do air commas here, little people. The nearly invisible worker, the farm worker. Our task as Farm Worker Ministry is to stimulate and support those communities of faith to live up to the realities of the urgent calls, the prophetic call, for example, that Teresa just quoted from Isaiah. Nan Freeman, as you've already heard, was Jewish, so it is fitting to look, as Teresa did, to Hebrew Scripture. I turn to another one. It's an example of activism if there ever was one. It's the book of Esther. It's the story of breaking rules about a woman's proper behavior. Esther speaks truth to a king with absolute power. He could have had her killed for the very act of speaking. Her act saved her people, the Jewish people. Esther understood the possible cost to herself, and she did it anyway. There are counterparts in the history of farm worker organizing. You just heard from one of them, which I did not expect either. But a few weeks ago, the ministry's board was in Bakersfield. Teresa was supposed to speak to us, but became sick, and we're saddened by that. We meet where our presence can help farm worker movements. That's why we were in Bakersfield. That's why we went to La Paz. One of our guests was Dolores Huerta. She, Larry Itleong, and Cesar Chavez were the three co-founders of what became United Farm Workers. As a woman, she was consigned by gender and long-standing social roles to powerlessness. As a Mexican American, she knew the sting of racism. None of that stopped her. Think of Esther. Dolores led. She spoke. She organized. She proclaimed truth to greedy, greedy power. She is now over 90 years old. She is physically tiny. Next to me, she's about that tall. But she's still active, vigorously organizing. For those of you who are 15 or 18 or 20, think about this. This is an 80-plus-year-old woman who spent 2 hours answering questions, and that at the end of a long workday. One member of our board asked her, Dolores, at your age and with such an enormous record of achievements, what in the world keeps you going? There was a pause. Then she says, there's work to be done. There's work to be done. Somehow, in part because of her Jewish faith, Nan Freeman knew that. Her all too brief history, which you've heard various people narrate in different ways, is absolutely uncanny. 200-page reports on social injustice at age 16. She understood what Dolores said a few weeks ago. She saw the need to make visible, to remove the invisibility, to accompany, to advocate for those who are exploited, almost invisibly. So like a young Dolores Huerta, Nan Freeman set out to do the work of justice, the work of faithfulness. She went to Belgrade not to be famous or to be memorialized, but simply because, to quote Dolores again, there was work to be done. That was the work of accompaniment, of advocacy, of being present for and with farm workers, not prescribing, but being present. Otherwise, they go unseen, unaided, invisible. And that, of course, cloaks exploitation. Sadly, Nan Freeman, as we've already heard, did not get to fulfill the immense potential that we can see that she had. One has the sense, I have the sense, that there was a talent, a commitment, a calling in her that resembles Dolores. Important though it is to honor Nan's memory and grieve her premature loss, it is not enough. It is not what she would have wanted. There's still work to be done. There's activism still to be practiced. Undocumented farm workers were designated as essential during the COVID-19 pandemic, and then, as you said, we weren't allowed to get vaccinated. What's that about? They're still harassed, still slandered, because of their immigration status and race. But they're essential. Odd conflict there. Guest worker programs are still being proposed with below poverty level wages, with no privilege to organize, no freedom of association. This is what Teresa was talking about at lunch. Companies like Wendy's, British American Tobacco, you can go on, there's a long litany of those, sadly, refuse to come to agreement with farm worker organizations. If you are involved in a faith community, I invite you to join with farm worker ministry. We work to equip and animate faith communities for accompaniment and advocacy. We listen to farm worker organizations, that's why we were in Bakersfield. We ask questions, try to get a clear understanding, and unless we have serious reservations about what is being asked of us, we work to make their causes visible, persuasive in cities and towns and suburbs, faith communities where farm workers are otherwise mostly invisible. Therefore, as you look at the murals, I think they're in that direction, is that correct? Remember Nan. Then take inspiration from her commitment, her activism, her energy, her faithfulness to prophetic tradition. As the murals show, she went to accompany workers. She would have us do no less. She would remind us there's work to be done.
So, my colleague, Professor of Religion at New College, Rabbi Susan Marks, is now offering Kaddish prayer.
I want to thank everybody for including me in part of this wonderful memory and inspiring way forward. And that's very much what the Kaddish prayer is. If people don't know it, it's associated with death because it's a memorial prayer, but its words are really words of praise. Praise to the God who created Nan Freeman. Praise to the God who created all the people we've been hearing about today who were doing such inspiring work. And so it is in that spirit of praise as well as in memory as we remember on the 50th anniversary Nan Freeman. So please rise with me as I'll lead us in these words of memorial. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabah, v'yalma yivrach pirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei b'chol Beit Yisrael, v'galal b'zman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei rabah mivarach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitalel v'yitalal, Shemei Chudashah, B'richu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran v'yalma v'imru, Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya, V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, V'kol ha'olam, v'imru, Amen. Osei shalom b'imromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, V'kol ha'olam, V'imru. Amen.
Amen.
May man's memory always be a blessing. And let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
So we close with song under direction of Jane Rose. And don't go away because I have a few other comments after the song.
We're going to close with a song we think we did before. It's just a well-known Peace Protest song from Pete Seeger, and you probably all recognize it. I want you all to try to sing along with me. Pretty simple stuff. So we shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We shall be free. We are not afraid. We are not afraid today. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we are not afraid today. We are not alone.
I have different words here.
We shall live in peace.
What do you know the peace picture?
We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
One more time from the beginning.
We shall overcome.
overcome someday.
Before we leave, I wish to acknowledge the organizations and people who made this permanent memorial and this event possible. I wish to thank New College for its support, allowing for the permanent memorial in the form of a mural, and facilitating the use of its installations. I thank the leadership of the Jane Bancroft Cook Library for facilitating this wonderful space. Special thanks to the New College Foundation, which facilitated the processing of donations and business transactions. And of course, the many individuals and organizations who donated to the Memorial Fund. I thank in particular Jeff Thomas for your support, time, and resources, including the technology necessary to stream this event. Thank you as well to Ron Silver and the New College New Music for your support. Rachel Hunter facilitated a very quick acquisition of the plaque by the mural. And I want to express a special thank you to Danielle Digger. I appreciate the care you took to hear the diverse voices of the committee in the creation of the moving and inspiring murals. I believe that with your work, we have achieved the goal of creating a meditative space that is also inspiring us into action. I was asked, is Danielle here? So I'm going to ask you to come. We have with us a small token, a certificate of appreciation to Danielle Digger for painting a beautiful outdoor mural at New College of Florida commemorating Nancy Seaman. The planning committee consisted of Mark Grossman, Kenny Snodgrass, Liz Freeman, Pamela Albright, Sam Tricky, Julie Morris, Jono Miller, Ellen Klein-Smith, Sofia Lombardi, Hilario Barajas, and Lizzie McElroy. I guess I should put me in there too. It has been a pleasure working with each and every one of you in the community. It must be noted as well the contributions of various other members of the staff at New College. Those of you who have brought the chairs, are taking care of the technology, and those in charge of the quality of the space that we occupy now. Thank you to the Met staff who prepared and brought the snacks, so we can go in a moment over there. And the last note, but not the least, I thank you all for coming to honor Nan Freeman's life. I invite you to enjoy refreshments and to visit the mural in the Ace Breezeway, just on the other side of the plaza. You walk out, just continue straight, and you will find it. Thank you.
Thank you.